Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Assassin, I Choose You. That's right, this is the latter episode about the assassin. So you are thinking about choosing the assassin as your starter character. Starter character. Today, we are going to talk about why the assassin could potentially be a very good choice for a starter character, and why maybe they might not be. We're going to go over the fine details with a fine-tooth comb, and hopefully you guys will get an idea of whether this is the right choice for you. Now, today we're going to look at several different factors. Number one, which is the first factor that I always like to focus on, is the assassin an equipment-based character? And the answer to that question is yes and no. So the assassin has two different specs. It has the martial arts tree, and it also has the trap tree. Now, the trap tree specifically is sort of like a sorceress tree, in that you can simply put points into a skill. The skill will give you a rather nice amount of damage, and by putting points into that skill, you can do fairly well. You don't necessarily need a large amount of equipment to be a trap assassin, and because of this reason, trap assassins can actually be highly effective early game before getting any equipment whatsoever. In fact, Wake of Fire tends to be a rather awesome ability in normal difficulty, and it does tend to wane off toward nightmare difficulty, but by then you can respec into something else. There are also some other very nice abilities that you can use, like for instance Lightning Sentry and Death Sentry. Death Sentry is one that we probably want to talk about in excess, because Death Sentry has the ability to spam essentially what is called corpse explosions. So the Necromancer has an ability which is very similar to this, and the Necromancer ability is a little bit stronger because it does 70 to 120% of the corpse's life, as opposed to Corpse Explosion, which does 40 to 80% of the corpse's life. Death Sentry can also be a little bit difficult to use, because if you use it at the wrong times, it will spam lightning instead of corpse explosions, because if there are no corpses on the ground, it just simply fires lightning, being completely wasted essentially. And you have to be a little tricky in when you cast your Death Sentries to make sure that they're being used at the appropriate times. This does cause a little bit of a sort of a micromanagement of the character, which can be a little bit difficult. There is also the Blade Sentinel tree, which has gotten significant buffs in recent patches, but I would not recommend a early ladder build with Blade Sentinel, Blade Fury, and Blade Shield. The reason why is because despite the fact that they are very nice abilities, and I have built a Blade Fury Assassin myself, they are also abilities that are extremely based on the weapon. So if you have a bad weapon, they're going to do terrible damage, and if you have a good weapon, they are going to do good damage. And because of this, that means that they are going to be extremely equipment based. You actually need to buff a lot of things to use Blade Fury effectively, like Deadly Strike, high weapon damage on your actual weapon, usually in the form of an ethereal weapon, combined with some other very, very nice effects like Crushing Blow, Open Wounds, and so forth and so on, to really make it quite effective. Blade Fury also has an issue with attack rating, and I wouldn't be amiss if I did not talk about it. So if you do plan on building Blade Fury anyway, maybe you just want the challenge. One of the main issues with Blade Fury is it has no attack rating whatsoever, like no bonus to attack rating. And you will find that this is a big detriment. One of the ways that I have found to counter this is to utilize Cloak of Shadows, which reduces the enemy's defense by a pretty massive amount. And when brought up to a high level, like 25, it can actually reduce the enemy's defense by 87%, which is a pretty massive amount, and can pretty effectively counter the fact that Blade Fury does not have any attack rating on it whatsoever. Now, this does mean that you have to use Cloak of Shadows on a regular basis, which isn't a terrible thing, but you're going to be constantly hitting that Cloak of Shadows button every single time it comes up. Now, another thing to consider when you're talking about a character is, does this character have a meat shield? What do I mean by meat shield? Well, I mean a monster or character that can tank for you, right? Well, the assassin does have a monster that can tank for them. Very specifically, it has the Shadow Warrior and the Shadow Master, both of which can be highly effective tanks, given whatever situation you happen to be in. Now, granted, each one tends to be used differently. So if you are a trap assassin, sometimes trap assassins will avoid the Shadow Master because it does spam traps. And then some people will utilize, avoid the Shadow Warrior because the Shadow Warrior doesn't tend to work very well with certain skills. To give you a very brief understanding of what the difference is between the Shadow Warrior and the Shadow Master, it is essentially this. The Shadow Warrior is going to use your abilities. The Shadow Master uses whatever the hell he wants. Or rather, she wants. Now, I have noticed that certain abilities the Shadow Warrior will not copy. And it actually makes me kind of mad because when I was on my Blade Fury Assassin, my Shadow Warrior would not copy Blade Fury. So I ended up using Blade Master instead. Or sorry, Shadow Master instead. And that's just an interesting little tidbit there. We also have some other very interesting things that make this character a very nice early game character. Number one is Burst of Speed, which can make your character run a lot faster earlier on when you don't have access to any faster run-walk equipment. For the most part, getting a nice pair of boots seems to be just absolutely crazy hard, and especially early ladder for some reason. You usually end up wearing some blue stuff that you find, if you can find a nice pair of blue boots. Usually you end up wearing just whites for a while until you end up finding your first set or unique item. And Burst of Speed can be a nice way to counter the lack of run walk speed. It also has a very nice attack speed bonus on it as well, which can help you out again in terms of lack of equipment. So maybe you're a trap assassin who's trying to fire faster traps, or you're a martial art assassin who needs to attack faster, and you just haven't happened to find enough plus attack speed equipment. This can be a way that you can counter that. We also have Fade, which can be a very effective way to counter lack of resistances. So maybe you've made it to Nightmare difficulty or you've made it to Hell difficulty and you just cannot, for the life of you, put together any kind of good equipment in the form of resistances. Fade can be a very effective ability to counter lack of resistances for a short period of time until you can manage to cobble together the right pieces of equipment to make a somewhat usable and survivable character. Fade is a massive bonus to your resistances, your physical damage reduction, 1% per level for physical damage reduction, which does cap out at the max level here. So if I go ahead and put some points into this, you'll notice that my physical damage reduction is at 25 now, and it will go as high as I can put skill points into it. We also have 67% resist all and a curse duration reduction of 84%, which makes your character extremely tanky. The ability to remove amplify damage and decrepify off of yourself is great, and the 25% damage reduction can be stacked with other forms of damage reduction to make your character even stronger. Now, granted, depending on the kind of character that you will want to be, you can go back and forward on this. You can also build Venom. Venom is also an extremely nice skill as far as the amount of poison damage that it can give you. So it's a nice elemental damage ability, which if you happen to be a physical damage character, the Venom can come in really handy to give you that elemental damage edge to do a little bit more damage on top of your physical, especially for those physical immune monsters. Assassin also has another defensive capability in the form of Weapon Block. Weapon Block requires 2 claws, and if you're wearing 2 claws, you have the ability to Weapon Block. And what a lot of people don't know about Weapon Block is that Weapon Block actually allows your assassin to block spells. So you can't block a spell with a shield, but you can block a spell with Weapon Block. And that is one of the very, very amazing things about Weapon Block. So keep that in mind when you think about whether or not you'd like to go toward that particular side of the tree. We also have Mind Blast, which is a really amazing ability that allows you to crowd control. Let me go ahead and show you really quickly kind of what Mind Blast can do, because it's a pretty amazing ability. And let me not forget to put Vitality in like I did last time on the Barbarian. So if you go to any location, really, and you spam Mind Blast, you will notice that not only do you knock back the targets, stun them, but you also have the ability to convert them, which acts as an amazing form of crowd control and can save your life on many occasions. And as you can see here, I am I have now converted most of the monsters to my side. They are stunned, they are knocked back, and even the ones that are not, I can continue to fire this at will. And this is something that the Shadow Master will also spam. If you get the Shadow Master, she loves to spam the Mind Blast. I don't even know why, but literally sometimes I think she does it on purpose just to troll me. I'm not even joking. So we've talked about the trap tree. We've talked about the shadow disciplines tree. Now let's also talk about the martial arts tree. So the martial arts tree has gotten a huge revamp. And I'm actually kind of excited about this because the martial arts tree just really has changed quite a bit from the previous form. What they have done is they've made it so that Dragon Talon, Dragon Claw, Dragon Tail, and Dragon Flight have a guaranteed hit as long as you have at least one charge of any type on your character. They have also made it so that instead of burning all of your charges, it only burns one charge per attack. So, for instance, if I was to go outside and build up a charge with a... let me go ahead and pop some points into dexterity real quick. Might be nice if I had this stuff set up in advance, but I don't because I suck, and that's my name, Ginger Gaming Mentor. So let's go out real quick and let's play around with this real quick just so I can show you. We'll go ahead and grab Fists of Fire, why not? And then we'll also grab one of the finishers. So let's go ahead and grab Dragon Tail. I always love Dragon Tail. Dragon Tail is a nice explosion. And pink. So how it works now is if you attack with the ability... Ooh, ow. Might need some resistances or something. You know, I never really think about the fact that I'm in hell difficulty with a character who has absolutely no equipment. I just go out there thinking I'm like the king of the world, and I'm just like get beat down by a bunch of fire archers. Let's go to Nightmare difficulty real quick just so I can show you this. It's really a demonstration. It's not meant to be anything more than that. So when you attack with the ability, you'll notice that you gain your 3 charges like you always have, but when you kick, only 1 charge will disappear. When you kick again, you lose the 2nd charge, and when you kick again, you lose the 3rd. And this works for all charges. So if I were to build, let's go ahead and grab Tiger Strike as well. So if we grab 1, 2, 3, so we've got 3 charges of that, and we also grab 3 Tiger Strike charges. You'll notice that when I kick, I only lose 1 of each. And Tiger Strike, they actually changed it. Tiger Strike used to eat the charge whether you hit the target or not. Like, for instance, like say you were too far away from the target or something, and you happen to like attack, and the game kind of like got a desync notification. I've noticed that the charges on Tiger Strike don't get eaten by nothing anymore, which is rather interesting. Hello, Gut Main. I died at Nightmare difficulty, guys. Would be nice if I had one of those defensive mechanics, like for instance, weapon block, burst of speed, fade. You know, any of those defensive mechanics, which could definitely have most probably saved my life, but which I did not have. So when you think about the martial arts assassin, think about it in a different light that you've ever thought about it before. You have the ability to do the kick assassin, which is a very powerful assassin, which can utilize things like a crushing blow and open wounds. And you also now have the ability to utilize an actual martial arts assassin. And here's the interesting thing about the martial arts assassin is that unlike a lot of other characters that are highly equipment based, the martial art assassin can actually be relatively non-equipment based because of the elemental damage nature of the Fists of Fire, the Claws of Thunder, the Blades of Ice, the Phoenix Strike, which also has a massive amount of elemental damage. You can relatively apply a nice amount of elemental damage to a target without having to have the most amazing equipment. And this is pretty sweet. So you can get your defensive mechanics from the Shadow Discipline tree, and you can get your damage from the from the actual charges. I have heard that quite a few of these now, like Dragon Claw is very good, Dragon Talon and Dragon Tail are both pretty good, and even Dragon Flight now, because it has a guaranteed hit on it, is rather interesting as well, because that means that if you can build up like 3 Tiger Strikes and maybe 3 Blades of Ice or 3 Claws of Thunder, you can get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think like 7, 8, 9. I think 9 is the maximum. You can get like 9 charges, and then you could Dragon Flight into the middle of a bunch of monsters and just watch everything melt. There's a lot of options here. You have the ability to be a trap assassin. You have the ability to be a melee assassin. You can even do some sort of hybrid of the two. And quite honestly, the last thing that we need to talk about is solo self-found versus a group character. So is the assassin good at solo self-found? Well, yes. The assassin can be extremely good by itself because of the fact that it has a skill-based damage ability. It also has a very nice tank, which can be used, a meat shield, essentially. You can use the Shadow Warrior or the Shadow Master. You can also go through the melee tree, and you can get quite a good amount of elemental damage in the melee tree. You can also swap this out later for a different build, more of a physical damage build, to kill Ubers and things like that. There is some very, very effective kicks-in builds out there. And they have really high crushing blow and open wounds, and they do they kill Ubers at amazing speed. I've actually seen it myself many times, and it is surprising when you see how fast they can knock down the Ubers using their kicks and things like that. As a group character, using things like Mind Blast, Cloak of Shadows, utilizing the tank, the meat shield, essentially. All of this can be very effective. The corpse explosions can be very effective in a group because even if you can't necessarily kill anything, you can actually be a very effective DPS character for your group, specifically by putting down death sentries. So even at the very least, even if you have, maybe even if you're a martial arts assassin, you can still put a couple points into the death sentry just so that you have some corpse explosions to help you out and assist you as you go forward. So, I mean, all in all, not only does the assassin do very well in solo self-found, but they also tend to do extremely well in groups. And then we can talk about equipment. So, assassins tend to be... that was an accident. Assassins tend to be very interesting as far as equipment goes. They need very specific equipment in the form of claws, or they need very specific pieces of equipment in the form of like plus to skill equipment. Like, for instance, if you happen to find a very nice pair of claws, which is like +3 traps, +3 death sentry, things like that, those can be very, very effective. They also need high kick damage boots if they're going to run kick damage. Now, you can't see kick damage on sets. I don't know why it's always been bugged like that, but when you look at any pair of boots on an assassin, you will see that there is a kick damage listed on it. Right, these are 60 to 110, and I should have another pair of boots. These are bone weaves with 69 to 118, and why don't I have 18 pairs of boots in here? I need 18 pairs of boots. But each individual pair of boots is going to have a different kick damage on it. So most of the time when it comes to a kicks in, you're looking for the higher tier boots, because the higher the tier boots, the higher kick damage they have. It's not necessarily about the stats a lot of the times when you're doing a kicks in. Sometimes it's just about getting the highest kick damage that you possibly can. Like, for instance, in my case, when I first started my kicks in, because I wanted to build her as a kicks in the entire way up, I literally sat in the gamble shop and gambled for like the highest tier boots that I could gamble for, just so I'd have a white pair of boots with the highest kick damage. And as you go forward, you'll find better and better pairs of boots, but you'll make choices that are specific to, hey, how much kick damage is on this pair of boots? Is it better than the previous ones? And the max kick damage boots are actually Myrmidon Greaves. There's 2 very good options for Myrmidon Greaves. You can upgrade a pair of Gore Riders, or you can use Shadow Dancer. Shadow Dancers tend to be a little bit more rare. Now, Natalia's set, unfortunately, is not as easy to come by. Recently, I did a video on the Barbarian, and one of the things that I talked about was the Barbarian set is very easy to come by. Well, Natalia's is not as easy to come by as the Barbarian set. In fact, the Claw, if I remember correctly, is quite rare, and good luck actually finding one. So if you do happen to find one, it can be an absolutely excellent choice for an assassin, well, a martial arts assassin. Now, I do have a very interesting amount of comments recently on starter characters like assassins, and quite a few people have been talking about playing an assassin as their starter character, and it's very interesting to hear what people have to say when it comes to the assassin. So I thought maybe I would read some of the comments here, and let me see if I can pull some of them up. So Gamble God 0101 said, "Assassin is the best starter, hands down." We also have Chance Bogner, who said, "Started D2R as an assassin, really liked it, but hated not having teleport. Was thinking about going Necro on ladder because I figured out the Poison Nova is my favorite build." So very interesting there that he points out that he feels like the lack of teleport on Sorceress is a big downside. Now, I mean, on Assassin is a big downside. Now, the Assassin does actually have a teleport of sorts, and that is Dragonflight. And let me show it to you really quickly so you guys get an idea of what Dragonflight is like. Dragonflight is not an ability that just simply lets you teleport anywhere. Like, I can't just right-click on the screen and teleport, but I can right-click on a monster and teleport to the monster. That is how this particular works. And look, I'm going to die again because I forgot to put some points in Vitality. So I can teleport across the screen to the nearest monster, like I can teleport down here to the catapult. I can teleport here to the other catapult. But I can't teleport specifically where I want unless there's a monster there for me to teleport to. And that is a big downside of the ability. So it doesn't really work as well as teleport, but if you have at least 1 point into it, it can certainly be useful to help you get from place to place a little bit quicker. Especially to get you across gaps, like maybe you're in Arcane Sanctuary, which is a great place to have teleport in, or maybe you're somewhere that you're just constantly getting stuck, like the siege zones full of monsters, the little ladders, or Ariat Plateau, where there's all these little doorways and things like that, and you can't quite get to where you want to get to. It actually works surprisingly well in these situations. So, like for instance, if I was right here and I wanted to get inside this room, I can teleport past that doorway relatively easily. And I would definitely put at least 1 point or try to get something that has Dragonflight on it until you actually have the ability to teleport natively, because it will come in really handy. And as you can see here, I was able to teleport across because I found a monster. And you could kind of just right-click off into the distance and hope that there's something out there, but there's not always a monster for you to teleport to, and that's kind of the issue that you run into there. Let's see how many other option or comments we have here. Let's see here. Going for Assassin as usual, Esh said. Why? Because they are great for area clears. They run fast. They can loot chests, identify stuff while traps do the dirty work, and they don't need keys. That's a very interesting point out there, and I did miss that. So if you are unaware, assassins actually do not need keys to open chests. It is a very unique thing that assassins have. So you don't actually have to carry keys, which does mean that no matter what, wherever you go, if you do see a locked chest, you're going to be able to walk up to the locked chest, just click on it, and it will open. And let me see if I can find a locked chest real quick, just to show you guys, because why not? Go to Travancore. There's usually plenty of locked chests in Travancore. As you can see, locked chest, and as you can see, no key in my inventory anywhere, and bam, it opens right up. Absolutely excellent observation by Ash. So, in retrospect, I think we've talked enough about the Assassin. I do feel like it does make a good starter character if you build it correctly. I also feel like the Assassin can be an absolutely poor starter character if you build it wrong. Do your research in advance. Think about it a little bit, what kind of skill tree you would like to go down. Do you want to try out a martial art assassin? Maybe even do a couple dry runs. We have some time now. We don't necessarily know when the ladder is going to start. So you have time to play around with an assassin, make a brand new one, do a solo self-found run, see how far you can get, see what kind of stumbling blocks you run into. And you know, if you can figure out your way around some of those stumbling building blocks, then you've got a fairly solid character. We also have a lot of new mechanics to think about when it comes to the assassin. The whole martial arts tree, honestly, has been flipped upside down on its head as far as I'm concerned, because they increased the attack rating of all of the charge-up skills, and they made it so that none of the finishers will ever miss as long as you're building at least one of the charge-up skills, which is pretty cool. You can, of course, also combine some of the traps with your martial arts build. A lot of people will like to get at least one death sentry in there, so they have the corpse explosions running alongside of their martial arts build. There is also the very amazing blade tree now, which is very fun. Even before they buffed it up, I found it to be a very fun tree. And now that it has been buffed up, I'm actually pretty excited to try it out again with my my full damage Blade Fury assassin. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and let me know what you think about the assassin. I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say. I bow to experience wherever experience is, and I am always a student as well as a teacher. So if you have something to teach me, teach. And as always, thanks for watching. Great. Let me see how fucking loud that shit is.